What is going on? Whoa, live stream. No, I don't want live stream. What are we doing here?
Do we go live?
I hope not. Anyways.
Crossbow, this is Watchdog. Are we live right now?
I
Hell
think
yeah.
so. I don't know. I hope not, because I didn't press that.
Live
Anyways.
to who? Who would be watching? I know that we're big in the Ukraine right now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gonna See My Friends, the podcast where we talk about movies, memories, and everything in between. I'm Steven. This is my co-host, Toby.
Hi, everyone.
What's going on? Every episode, we dive into the films that shaped us, the ones that we can't stop talking about, and maybe even a few we've never even seen before. From cult classics to new releases, we break it all down with plenty of laughs, hot takes, and the occasional friendly disagreements. So grab some beers, some doobies, whatever you need to do. Let's go talk to our friends, huh? Welcome, everybody. How you doing, Tobe?
Hey, Crossbow, this is Watchdog. I am so pumped.
This is going to be a great episode.
This was an absolute delight, one that I was not expecting.
Right. I mean, I think when you hear to let everybody know, we're just going to talk about Real Genius and Val Kilmer, who passed away sadly this week, and that is a major bummer. I don't know why this hit me the way it did, because, well, actually, I do know why. Well, I have a theory, basically, which is...
Let's hear it.
I feel like, when you're a kid and you're watching these movies, they're perpetually like 20 years old or whatever, 25 or whatever their age they're trying to act like, 22, 23. And they stay that way. And when people start to pass away, it just kind of reminds you of your own kind of mortality. And also, these movies and these actors are aging with you. And it just hit me. I don't know why. I mean, I grew up with Val Kilmer, and I think it's because he was kind of this character actor that had these kind of movie star leading man looks, and you kind of take it for granted, or at least I did take it for granted, that they're just always going to be around, and it's just tough. I don't know, it just hit me. It was weirdly I don't know. It was just sad. It was sad. And
having been able to put words to it is tough. I understand exactly what you're saying, and you do bring up a good point. When I saw that news that came in, what was it, Wednesday morning, and it was almost for me like I had forgotten, because he kind of did his kind of going away. He made that kind of autobiographical documentary called Val.
Yeah.
He had been filming everything, everywhere he went, with a video camera.
Yeah.
The whole time. He had hundreds of hours of footage of the set of Willow, on the set of Batman, he documented everything that he was doing, and he had the wherewithal at the time, Top Gun, to record it, because he is really a very nostalgic guy. And I think he was really coming to terms with his mortality. He was diagnosed with throat cancer, but for 2 years he denied that he had cancer, and everyone was like, sounds like you have throat cancer. So it was a little weird how and I've never been diagnosed with cancer. I deal with cancer every day at work, and I don't know what that's like. I don't know so for him, his way of dealing with it was to say, no, it's not happening. And maybe the mind over matter thing.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of interpreted it, but
yeah.
I saw that. It was an amazing documentary. 2021, It was an Amazon documentary, came out during the pandemic. I think everybody saw it. I mean, we saw it. If you saw Tiger King, please tell me you saw the Val 2-hour autobiographical. It was amazing. And he did it all himself. And he used all his own footage and photos that he had taken from his camera and from his little handheld. And for me, it was kind of like a goodbye letter. And when he was in Top Gun Maverick a couple years ago as Iceman, who is now retired, I think he was the admiral of the 7th Fleet. That's as high up as you can go, by the way. And if you're the rear admiral of the 7th Fleet, you're but he had cancer in that. And they actually, he went from I don't have cancer to the last role I'm going to play in Hollywood, I'm going to address it. Excuse me. See, I'm getting emotional about it now. But your good
Yeah.
point was he was kind of seen as a character actor, and you don't really think of him that way. The movies that he is really probably best known for, he's not the matinee star on the bill. I mean, he's probably on the poster, but look at this. He's probably best known for Doc Holliday. This was about Tombstone's about Wyatt Earp and the Earp boys and
Right.
everything, and he's the second. He's Chris in Heat. We did Heat a couple months ago, and so we've seen Val. Iceman in Top Gun. He's Mad Mardigan in Willow.
Right.
He's arguably co-starring in that, but Willow's about Willow. It's a character study about. But when he's the main star, like in Real Genius, he really gets a time to shine and show how funny he is.
Yeah, and I think it's weird because I think in deciding this one, I mean, I remember texting you midweek and being like, "Hey," because we were originally going to do another movie, but then when this news came out, I remember texting you going, "Hey, can I change it to Real Genius?" And it was between Real Genius and The Saint. I don't know if you've ever seen The Saint.
See, that's surprising. I thought you were going to pick Top Secret, actually.
Well, that was on the radar too because Tim Bastion, when I did the Highlander one, I think one of the producers had just passed away on that too. And I said, "Hey, we should do another one. We get Toby in on this one and do another one." And he's like, "Yeah, Top Secret. That'd be a good one." And so that's always been on kind of the radar as well. But the Rewatchables podcast, they just did this last night. It came out last night about The Saint. And they made some really good points. If you haven't seen that, go over to Bill Simmons, The Rewatchables, the Ringer movies. Great podcast. And they were bringing up the idea that, or Bill was, about how this was kind of a vehicle for him to shine, because he played so many different characters. This was kind of right after Mission Impossible, but he didn't use masks, or he used prosthetics, but he didn't use really full face masks. It was mostly like his voice and different accents and different characters within that movie. And I think when you have an actor like Val Kilmer, I think that's where he shines the most. Is not the main star. I mean, he could do leading man material, but I think where he shines is where he's allowed to kind of experiment and do all these different things and take risks acting wise, and I think that's why I feel like it's not so much that he did all these flashy leading man parts, but it was also he was able to kind of fly under the radar and give you these excellent performances that didn't have the added pressure of being the leading man and carrying a movie and doing all that kind of thing, which he certainly could have, but it was just amazing to watch him work. And now that he's gone, kind of, appreciating the work that he left behind, and, that it's amazing.
Well, I didn't look and see exactly how many credits he has on IMDb, but the list goes, he was working nonstop. Right. I mean, he became Jim Morrison in The Doors.
Yeah.
It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. They interview Ray Manzarek from The Doors, and they're like, "Well, he got the name of the band right." But he looked like Jim. He sung all those parts.
Yeah. I mean his go ahead.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I think his audition was I think some of the Doors didn't realize it was Val and thought it was Jim in some of the auditions tapes, and that Robert Krieger has even been on record to saying that. And so I think, the immersion of a character, and I think later in his career, this was less so, but I think at the time, the immersion into his characters was kind of more Brando-esque. I don't even know if Brando did it to that extent, but I think it was just very immersive. And I think it took a toll on his marriage too. I think right after that, his marriage kind of, not to get into gossip or anything, but, it takes a toll and to the people around you. But, that's the price he was willing to take. And I think in his later years, he was a little more remorseful about that. I saw an interview in 14 where, his speech was affected, but it wasn't totally gone yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how, he just wished he was a little nicer, a little more, he got along with others a little better. But, it wasn't like it was totally regretful. It was just like, you live, you learn. And I love acting. So, you just kind of roll with it. And I don't know. I mean, again, just hit me like a ton of bricks when he passed, and I didn't expect it to hit me as hard as it did.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
he certainly will be missed. I mean, you forgot to be. He did a one man Broadway show
Yeah.
about Mark Twain.
Yeah.
He became Mark Twain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was doing that show, I think, when he first noticed that he had a lump in his throat, and they found out that he had throat cancer. He had a couple different tracheotomies done, and he was known to wear the scarf, and then the different medication that he was on kind of made the face kind of puffy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Norm Macdonald kind of had that same kind of the different medications that he was taking to fight the cancer was kind of doing you saw similar results there. I mean, anything to stay alive, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Do you want to get into the real genius here in the movie?
Absolutely.
All right. Cannot wait. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So today we're dialing back to the 1985 cult classic that gave us lasers, pranks, and peak Val Kilmer. You guessed it, real genius. This movie is part college comedy, part adventure, and all 80s gold. But what does it hold? Does it still hold up, or is it just a nostalgic fever dream? We're breaking down the genius of real genius, and from its high-tech, savvy hijinks to Kilmer's legendary one-liners. So here we go. Let's dive into real genius here. When was the first time that you even heard of this movie? Do you remember?
Well, this for sure. This is one of those. You go to the video store in Forestville.
Yeah.
And this is one that you notice the poster with him sitting on the desk with the bobble star. Because it comes out in 85, so I'm 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it being in the theater. It's just, for whatever reason, I really don't. And probably didn't rent it until sometime into the late 80s, or somebody had rented it and see it at a, sleepover or something like that. And then I honestly probably only seen this movie 3 times all the way through. And then it's been 30 years since the last time I've seen it. It's not one that's really out there that gets quoted a lot, that comes up. And I think a lot of people might confuse this movie with Weird Science. I kind of have it sometimes confused with Weird Science. And rewatching it again this week, I've now doubled the times I've watched it all the way through because I rented it on Thursday and watched it. And Steve, I was freaking blown away. I'm obsessed with this movie.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's a comfort.
I mean, okay. It's so smart. The science that's in it is, they're not just rattling off things like 1.21 gigawatts, which is fine. You can do that if it's not but it's called Real Genius, and it's a science-based movie. It's a laser-based movie.
Right.
And so the script writers have consultants that they...
consultants,
what would make this... Because if people who understand lasers watch this movie and what we're saying doesn't make any sense, it's going to be too obvious. So
right.
I have to assume that the science that's happening, I didn't look them all up, but there's so much of it that is just really, really smart. The science jokes that are thrown around just are I don't know. I just can't say enough good things about it from watching. We're supposed to be Mitch, right? In this movie, we're the 15-year-old kid, because it's a PG movie. It's the 80s. It's kind of the heyday for this. We're going to start making movies for the high school kids now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have John Hughes making movies all the time. And so they know that they can make money off us kids now. And so we get just an influx of all of these, jinxy kind of, so we're Mitch again.
Right,
Val Kilmer, is he the star of this movie? I don't know. It's really about Mitch and Mitch's journey.
Right.
But it's kind of both of them, and you don't care who it's about.
Right.
So I just found that I was texting you halfway through. Every joke was landing. Yeah. I just, as an adult watching this, because with the kids, we had our movies. They made movies for us kids at the time. But there's also jokes in there for the adults because you got to entertain the adults too.
Right.
And I hope that the adults that took their kids to the movie theater to go see this appreciated the adult jokes that are in here as
Right.
well, because there's
Yeah.
probably more of the adult type jokes than there are the kid type jokes. The kids
Yeah.
are waiting for the shirt to come off.
Yeah.
And we're going to joke about he's touching himself, and we'll get into all that, but
Yeah.
there's more like the subtleties of this. Yeah, I say we get into it. And
Yeah. Well, no, I have to agree. And especially the point you make about how it fits in with the other 80s movies. I mean, I think this is kind of around the time where Weird Science does come out. I think in 85 as well, 86, 85. You have Revenge of the Nerds. You have all these 80s teen movies that are kind of nerdy movies about just trying to get laid.
right,
or whatever it is.
Talking to girls is just a step one for a
Yeah.
lot of this, and that's what
Yeah.
they touch on that here. This is more of a Revenge of the Nerds, but a PG version of it. Revenge of the Nerds was just
yeah,
problematic at best.
Right. But I think this has elements of the overall kind of, I don't know if it's sentiment is the right word, but it's the overall kind of feeling of where the Revenge of the Nerds and Weird Science, all that comes from. There's just a certain thing about the underdog, I guess, story of trying to get the girl and all that. But you have Weird Science, you have Revenge of the Nerds, you have movies like Porky's and Hot Resort and all these other kind of trying to get laid type of movies. But I think what this does it a little better than Weird Science is that like you said, the science is a little more believable and a little more practical. And it's not necessarily about getting laid and getting women, although there's a small element of that in this movie. But it's more about that's what I was saying. It's part adventure, because it takes this kind of what we all kind of see in movies all the time is this trope about the CIA or this shadow government running stuff. And, we see that even like in movies like Dreamscape, that came out around the same time, of weaponizing kind of innovation, right? And trying to do nefarious things with it. And I think that this kind of does it a little, it has that great mix of comedy and action, but also a little bit of drama, that about in the beginning of the movie, everything's kind of laid out for you.
Yeah, and it's no mystery what's happening.
Right. And as the movie unfolds, you can kind of connect back to, remember when Chris is slicing the frozen nickel or whatever it was, the ice to put in the coffee machine. Well, that comes back, and just little things like that. And I think it does it so well. And what helps is that you have Val Kilmer, like you said, all his jokes landing. And it's more of the lightheartedness and the kind of genius in that as well. You have this real genius, the title, but you think, it's referring to kind of the people involved in trying to make this laser. But it's also his view of everything and how he relates to everything in the movie. It's just genius as well, So yeah. Before we get any further, yeah.
And
Go ahead.
Anna, as far as a movie, the structure of the movie, it's a little different than we're kind of used to seeing. It's a long running movie, and we'll talk about this as we go. But just from the callbacks that from an hour and a half ago to from the very first scene to the very final scene, there's a callback that I didn't get.
Really?
There's just little things. I mean, they're not huge things, like they don't change the story at all, but just the thought that went into this movie is just so impressive to me. And I'm really, really sad that it took me 30 years and for Val to pass away to go back and watch this. And I'm also regretting the fact that I only rented it. I should have just hit purchase, because I'll watch this again. It was fun. It was
Well, it kind of takes you back to the 80s when they were able to kind of mix comedy and adventure. I mean, as it harkens back to like Back to the Future, where it has all these kind of elements to it, and it does it so perfectly. And I think this was probably overshadowed by Back to the Future. I don't know when it came.
And Weird Science, and it kind of maybe slipped between the cracks for a lot of people.
Well, I think Back to the Future came out a month before this movie, so it gets kind of buried by all this. But I think there's a lot of movies like that. Oh, and My Science Project, that's another movie that was kind of sci-fi adventure, You got to see that movie.
Okay.
That's a funny movie. I mean, it's a little more hokey than these that I'm talking about, but it still has that element of adventure, science fiction, kind of all this other stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, and I think it just you wish that it was more there was more of a hype about this movie because it just flies under the radar regularly. Like
Yeah.
it's never showing up on like greatest lists of the 80s or whatever, this and that. But you watch it and and it's comfortable. It's like Back to the Future in that it's rewatchable. You could put it on and there's not a heaviness to it, even though it does deal with this kind of heavy subjects at times. But yeah, but before we go any further, man, let's have some deets.
Yeah, you need some tales.
Yeah.
All right, so it was directed by Martha Coolidge, who I had to look up, and I looked at the long list of movies that Martha had directed, and there's a lot. I didn't really see anything on the list that jumped out at me that was like, oh, she did.
Right.
So she did a phenomenal job. It's really well done. The directing is great. A good sized cast. There's a lot of science to know, and it's just really well shot. So well done, Martha Coolidge. Written by Neil Israel, Pat Profit, and PJ Torokve, who I think they wrote a book. No, it's not based on any. We were waiting for this to say it was based on Carl Sagan's. So it stars Val Kilmer as Chris Knight, Gabriel Jarrett as Mitch Taylor, Michelle Mayrink as Jordan Cochran, William Atherton as Professor Jerry Hathaway. It's got Robert Prescott as Kent, John Grise. Grise?
I would say Grise.
I say Grise.
Yeah.
He's Laszlo Holyfield, of course. Randy Lowell is Cornell, and John Shepard Reed is Carter. Love that William Atherton is got a huge role in this. We have also seen William Atherton as Walter Peck in Ghostbusters.
The Dickless Wonder.
And he's Thornburg in Die Hard, of course.
Yeah.
He's never a good guy. He's always the heavy. He's a Weasley. He's a punchable face guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, he's like the John Vernon of the from the John Hughes movies. The principal and the Trading Places guy, and
yes,
same type of kind of character that they play, and just they play it so perfectly. Go ahead.
Yes, he's born to play that character.
Yeah.
It's PG. And it is an hour and 48 minutes. It was released on August 7th, 1985. The budget was $8 million, and it grossed just about $13 million. The synopsis is an uptight teenage prodigy enters a top engineering college but feels awkward among the freewheeling students. When a professor aims to turn their laser project into a military weapon, he and his offbeat roommate plot to ruin the plan.
Yes.
Tagline on the poster was, "Who else can turn lasers into light shows, aircraft into armchairs, and high tech into hijinks?"
Amen.
Yeah, how about that? Only 6.9 stars on IMDb. I think that's too low.
Really?
I think yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, as of this morning, it was 6.9.
Well, my
5-star IMDb did not jump that up another notch, unfortunately. I was trying to get it up to 7, and it didn't. Only vote early and vote often, folks. It's so should we get right into it? I mean, we're off and running. We're
off and running. I think we'll get into the acts, the scenes, our favorite key scenes, or just go scene by scene, whatever.
I am in.
Anyways, okay, so getting back into the movie.
Yes, sir.
First, I guess the plot just shoots. It goes right into the plot, which is
literally shoots.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Of this clandestine kind of shadow government type of meeting going on here.
Yeah, dark room, very dark room,
and you're watching this kind of thing, and you think, "Wow, we're getting right into the story here." But it's actually just a commercial for the U.S. government about a weapon that they want to develop.
Yeah, you don't really get that at first. You're like, "Wow, we're in space."
Yeah, you think
we're in space. There's a spaceship. We have spaceships now,
right? Shooting lasers.
You're right. We don't.
And that's Stacy Peralta from the Bones Brigade.
Yes. And yes, it is. He's one of the top billed on IMDb. The credits, if you look this up, go in order
of appearance.
And you're like, it took a while to go down. Excuse me, the list. And sorry, cut that out. And it's Crossbow. This is Watchdog, and go ahead, Watchdog. and they absolutely they vaporized this poor guy sitting in his backyard with somebody barbecuing next to him.
Yeah.
Just gone. And then it's the voice of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see that it's freaking John Lithgow's voice that comes over and
Is
says,
it?
well, it's if
Yeah.
it's not, it's somebody.
Crossbow.
Yes, the crossbow. This is the and the narrator over this little, fan fiction film that they've put together to show this is what if we make this work in the next year and a half. They're just
Yeah.
like they're going for it.
Yeah. It's like shooting ducks in a pond.
Yeah, like shooting ducks in a barrel. And I'm like, that's not how that phrase goes, but all right. And they have this really interesting conversation. They sound like idiots, first of all, right? There's like, does the president or any responsible agency know about this? And the one guy goes, the CIA is a responsible agency, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this where you're like, I had to remind myself that it's 1985 right off the bat. I'm like, these jokes are landing a lot. This whole group right now, way close to home. I'm like,
it's the nonchalantness of the meeting, and it kind of gives to the secret of, or it gives to the hint of, these people are in powerful positions, because it's like, after this we'll just go have some lunch.
right.
It's like, it's just
show us the blindness. We'll go over the blindness one next, and then we'll have some lunch.
Blinding techniques,
not a problem. We're in the business of killing people.
Yeah, and that kind of comes across, especially when the guy dissents. He's like, "Oh, it looks like we're gonna have to liquidate George."
George?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
George doesn't want any part of this, so he gets up and he leaves. And they're right. We're just gonna have to liberate George.
Oh, liberate. That's what it is. Yeah. Liberate. You mean liquidate?
These are all things that I wrote down. One of the guys in this meeting talks about the laser and refers to it as a ray gun. Now, it's 1985. This guy, you mean Ronald Reagan, the actor, had seen a movie and went, we're doing that there. Let's do that. Let's put $1 trillion into this program. And who knows how many people got rich off it. Nothing ever went anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, so George dissents, and he's probably dead now. And then they cut to the science fair. Now we're at a high school science fair.
And, the CIA or whatever, recruits Dr. Jerome Hathaway. And his big entrance in this movie, everybody has big entrances except
this is William Atherton.
William Atherton, right. And, he is pretentious and really just stuck on himself and high on himself, and gives the parents the old backhanded compliment of like, any chances Mitch adopted?
I mean, he's signing autographs. He's a celebrity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody knows who he is, and this is kind of the schmoozy part of him, of trying to get what he wants, and he does. He recruits Mitch into Caltech, which is the fictitious university. And
no, Caltech's real. It's Pacific Tech.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Caltech
you're
is
right.
Real. Right.
Yeah, Caltech definitely real.
I stand corrected. So he recruits Mitch as a 15-year-old wonder kid, and
who's building a laser.
Yeah, and loves his ideas, loves how new and fresh his approach is to lasers, which is I think a budding technology, right, in the early 80s. I mean, in terms of movies and storytelling and all that kind of stuff.
It's a young science.
Yeah. Right. And so I think, so he recruits Mitch and tells Mitch he's going to be working with one of his idols, Chris Knight, who haven't been introduced yet, but it's kind of built up as this nerdy, or not nerdy, but this super brain guy, super intelligent prodigy like himself. Also, he hints at Holyfeld, but not by name, but he says that, the first one was 12, but he burned out.
Yeah, he burned out. Well, and he's at so Hathaway's at the science fair, the high school science fair.
Right.
This is where this celebrity walks into the science fair. Mitch he's created this new laser using ultraviolet light, using liquid iodine as fuel.
Jeez.
And he's built this basically out of like an old flashlight.
Right.
And the guy next to him has a science project called alcoholic mice. And so the levels in this high school, you can see Mitch he's obviously the smartest one in the room.
Right.
But the alcoholic mouse is passed out on the wheel. And I was like, dude, that would have been fun. Alcoholic mice. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So, and mom is all over Hathaway, right? Oh, yes, all this. And he's asked, do you have, so you're going to miss your friends? Oh, I don't really have any friends. Good.
Good.
Yeah.
We're different. Better.
Yeah.
You
He's
just
making
kind of
sure Mitch doesn't have any ties anywhere else because, again, I'm working for a clandestine, and if this thing works, I might have to murder all of you so you
yeah,
don't tell anybody
right,
who actually
right,
built this thing. I mean, that's kind of how some of this stuff works, where
right.
if
And
the conspiracies work, where people that know too much don't live to tell the tale.
well, that's how they recruit, foreign agents too. According to what I've heard, I don't know this for sure, but
You're not a
they
foreign agent.
right. I'm not.
Good.
And they usually recruit these kind of alienated kind of youth that don't have a lot of friends and are kind of ostracized.
Yeah.
That word.
No, it's an
And
excellent point.
right,
Yeah.
and so
People
you
that
kind
won't be missed.
right, and so you kind of Hathaway's kind of thing is to kind of keep that up because he doesn't want this getting out. He doesn't want when Mitch is trying to kind of try to fraternize or kind of blow off steam. There's this thing that he wants to emphasize to Mitch, which we'll get to later, is this thing of, look, you're here to do a job. I didn't you're not supposed to be doing all this stuff. Get back to work, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and that cuts to that scene, which is a great scene.
Hmm.
That cuts to the introduction of Chris Knight, which is Val Kilmer. And tell me about what you think about this scene, dude. Like
Yeah.
the introduction.
Well, we meet Chris, and who's wearing an I Heart Toxic Waste shirt and has the googly ears, has the googly star thing on his head from the poster. He's wearing the outfit from the poster, if I remember right. I mean, the poster doesn't. He never sits on a desk with his
Mhm.
crisscross applesauce like he's sitting on. He's got that kind of gyroscope drone up in the air, but he's wearing the googly, and he meets the professor. He's going to leave this when he graduates from Pacific Tech. His goal is to come to this grad school, I guess.
No, it's a company, Darlington.
Darlington. Okay,
Right.
that's okay. And he's getting the tour of he's got shorts on and he's got the shirt open and it doesn't take himself too seriously. He doesn't
Right.
want to come across as stuffy.
You're right.
And he repeats that over and over
yeah,
again.
all brains, no penis. He doesn't.
Yes. And so one of the first things that I thought was obviously incredibly good looking. I mean, matinee good looks, right?
Right, right.
This is Val Kilmer in 1985. Just the man, right? And he has some like Fletch about him in the way that he just carries himself. And the guy goes to open the door for him and he opens the other door the other way. And it's just a little tiny like decision
Right.
that is just, and he's just got this smile on his face, like he's just a step ahead, right? He's a step ahead. He's the smartest one around. He's one of the top 10 minds in the world, as it turns out.
And he hopes one day to be two of them.
He hopes one day to be two of them. And he meets his assistant, right? Okay.
Yeah. Well, this was the thing I think for me. That the irreverence or is reverent, I don't know what the word is, but the attitude of like, this doesn't really, I'm bored already, I'm just trying to make myself laugh, or
Yeah,
trying to
he's
be
asked if they have a jacuzzi.
right.
His mind is not on doing the science part of it.
This part is kind of defined me as kind of like the attitude that I wanted to take when I was a kid and I watched this. It kind of made me but it was kind of how I wanted to kind of convey myself was like, I didn't want to care. I didn't want to feel. This is how you're supposed to act. Being a kid, you're like,
you're looking up to him.
Right. And so
you're like, this guy is so confident.
Yeah.
That he's hitting on the assistant who's 30 in her 30s, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And he's just saying whatever comes off the top of his head, and you're like, dude, that is what I want to do.
Yeah. There's a lot.
That's cool.
There's a lot of kind of lines in this movie that I think this and Stripes, and it's just any kind of comedy that I grew up watching, I always try to incorporate into daily life. And this was kind of like one of the scenes that kind of has fueled all that, because there's a couple lines in this movie, and we'll get to them, where I've actually said in real life, and I've gotten the response that the response in the movie is the response that I got in real life.
They didn't know it was.
Yeah, it was like, and it wasn't to make them laugh. It was always to make me laugh. It was always to make me like.
I love it.
I love it.
I love that.
And I think a lot of people misinterpret that as like, you're just trying to be funny. And it's like, no, not really. I mean, I'm
this
trying
is
to be
an audience of
me.
one.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, this scene,
That's a very mature thing to do too. If I can just, give
Yeah.
you some flowers here. When you're at the point where you're out and you're like, he's the kid talking to the adults, right?
Right.
I mean, he's about to graduate from college, so he's not a kid, but to us, he's a kid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
an older kid, but and when you're in a situation like that where you're going to meet some, these are powerful people. This is like the dean of the school or the dean of Darlington. Is it
Uh-huh.
Darlington?
Yeah. No.
And
Yeah. That company. Yeah.
and he insults him right to his face. He's like, the satellite project. Is that the one that's raining debris all over Europe? So he's got disdain for this already.
Right. Right.
I'm going to come work for you because I'm not stupid.
Right.
I like
Right.
the money, and I want to party, but I freaking have no respect for you.
Hey, let
But
me
your
ask you this.
assistant is cute.
Right. Let me ask you this question. This is kind of the question you brought up one time, and I always bring it up. Did real genius walk so Goodwill Hunting could run?
I mean,
Because you have
in a more pretentious way for sure.
Because you have the hatred
I see it now. Yeah.
of power. You hate power, or you question it.
Interesting.
You don't like that you're smart enough to where you're instantly able to manipulate the conversation to wherever it is that you want it to go, and you just constantly fuck with people. That's when I watch this, I always think about, oh wow,
I hadn't
Goodwill
thought
Hunting.
of that, but I could see that.
Yeah.
And you got okay. You said so much to the point where you send your buddy to an interview because you have no intention of going to work for that company at all. So you send your buddy to go in there and just not taking things seriously.
Right.
So you think that this is easy for me.
And for like capitalists and people, pro-business people, and I'm not saying anything, it's just that they're always embracing any opportunity, got to go out and hustle, got to do whatever it is. Right. And this is the type of person that goes in there like Will Hunting, and it's just like, I already know, I'm already 10 steps ahead of anything that's going to happen in this situation. So, and I'm just going to fuck with it,
Yeah.
because of my, what's the word? Old man brain. But it's this kind of,
well, he was a savant.
Right. So this type of resentment toward power and toward money and toward, all this kind of stuff.
He was miserable too.
Yeah. So
Will Hunting was a miserable character, and it's because he was too smart. And there's some problem with being a genius.
Yeah.
Speaking of real genius, there's a problem with being a genius is they're usually really tortured people.
Yeah.
Because it's like ignorance is really bliss.
Right.
Where I wish I could just tune this out or not know. And as far as geniuses go, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we know what the project is. The laser's going to be so that we can, during peacetime.
Right. Well,
so it's unethical as well as, what do they say? It's both immoral and unethical.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's.
Again, it's the lightness that they take of it after they say
right.
That.
They're just these are complete sociopaths, right? Yeah. This is what we do. We're going to
kill
our enemies in the name of.
Yeah. We hope to have the working weapon by June. Well, I haven't had a working weapon since Korea.
Right. There's your first big dick and fart joke right there.
After the introduction of Chris Knight, we get to, what is it?
So Mitch arrives at school, and I think I also wrote down that he takes one of the classic lines. The one we get to one of our first lines here is, "Why are you wearing that on your head?" The bobblehead ears, or bobblehead stars. And he goes, "Well, if I wear it anywhere else, it chafes." And then he takes them off and he shoves them down the front of his pants. There's another, and then for the rest of that scene, he's standing there and it's sticking straight out, and he's standing right next to, what's her name? Sherry, who comes back in this movie a bunch of times. So Mitch arrives at the university, meets Gene, who is in charge, like the old man Gene. He's there for the mixer.
Oh, good. We have one.
Oh, we have one, right? And so the lady brings him down to meet Gene, and Gene's talking to somebody in that scene, and the person turns around and walks away. I swear to God, it's Harold.
I'll have to look at it
again. John Lithgow's in this, and Harold Ramis is in this, and there's no. I can't find
mentioned.
anything online that confirms this, but I swear to God, that's Harold Ramis who turns and he obviously no lines is on the screen for maybe 2 seconds. But as Mitch meets Gene, Gene is talking to a guy who turns away, and I'm like, if that's not Harold Ramis, it's somebody who looks. It's a spitting image.
Well, let's give thanks to the whole original ratio that they filmed it in, because back in the 80s when you had the VHS, it was the old pan and scan. So there's a lot of scenes in this movie that, thanks to their, presenting it in the original ratio, which I don't have it on me.
Yeah.
You can see the stuff on the side, and there's no more of this, where it has to pan.
Right.
And there's a couple of scenes I'll point out when we get to them
Okay.
that help that. But yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Go
All
ahead
right.
with this. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, he meets the Gene guy, and he says,
Yeah.
"Always, never
Yeah.
forget to check your references." And the reaction of Mitch when he says, what does he say to him? A bit of advice.
Yes.
Thank you. Like he's ready to write it down. And
He's ready. Mitch is at the ready. He's dressed. He's got a 3-piece suit. He is here to take this very seriously.
right,
He's the
right.
complete opposite of Chris.
We're told to expect great things from you.
Always, never. This guy's checked out. He's probably he's due for a retirement. Old Gene,
Yeah.
old man Gene, who we will see later in the movie again.
Yeah.
And then so Mitch is taken to the house, to the frat house. Call it a frat house. It's
Right.
a dorm where the
Yeah.
science dorm, and everybody's in there, and there's people playing pinball, and there's music, and he's just like, oh man, this. He was, he's fish out of water.
Right.
And he's taken to his room, and his stuff that had been put in there for him has all been removed from his bags. And he's like, what in the world? And next thing he knows, Uncle Rico comes strolling through the room in a duster, opens the wardrobe, and disappears into Narnia. And he's like, he goes and opens the door, and the guy's gone. And you're like, what is happening in this right now, right?
Well,
and
yeah.
So he turns around, and Chris is suddenly there, upside down. He's doing a handstand.
Would you be prepared if gravity reversed itself?
Yes. And he's wondering how he's like, I've got this figured out, but I just got to figure out how to keep the change from falling out of pockets. And Mitch is going, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So Chris and Mitch meet. They couldn't be any different from one another. Chris starts flying this drone around the room, and I'm like, look at this drone. This thing is sweet. And I, again, had to remind myself, this is 40 years ago.
Right.
We have these drones barely right now. And I'm like, dude, what is this movie? It had been way too long, and I was like, dude, I am obsessed with this.
Key lines in this scene, which is, did you disturb anything? No. Good, because I keep all my filth in alphabetical order.
Right.
I keep this under H for toy.
Yeah. He's very Fletch, right? Like, with the things that he's saying is not. You're like, what?
Yeah,
It's so good.
Keeps him off. Keeps him on his toes. Mitch on his toes. But it's always like, what is that? He's it's a penis stretcher. You want to try it? No, I'm just kidding. It's just another in a long, elaborate things to avoid responsibility. Just like you said, Fletch. It flows, and it's always. I've met people like this, although not maybe in all kinds of ways. Where they're just throwing stuff at you constantly, and you're like,
oh yeah.
Wait, hold up. Who are you? What are you saying?
Yeah, you're a lot.
Yeah, and so I think,
and Val's doing it perfectly.
Yeah,
he's just, you could tell he's having fun.
Yeah.
As this role, he's like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
And it's funny to think too, because before this, he did Top Secret, which was his first movie.
Yeah,
first movie out of the gate, Top Secret hit. Then he
Star.
does then he does this movie. Then he goes on to Top Gun the next year. He goes to Willow, The Doors, True Romance, Tombstone, Batman Forever, The Ghost in the Darkness, The Saint, and Red Planet. Like these.
Are you kidding me?
Are
you kidding me? This 15-year arc is incredible.
Incredible. Like
incredible.
How it's incredible the 80s and 90s Val Kilmer kind of and early 2000s that kind of pulled off all these roles. And we are kind of like, for me, it was, it was astonishing how he was never nominated for an Academy Award. He was never nominated for a Golden Globe or any of these kind of prizes. And there's just so many roles that kind of defined that era, whether he was a co-star or whether he was starring. It was just, it's amazing.
Well, if you're not going to get it for for the Doors, then it's just not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, we
Or
didn't
even
have
Tombstone.
a lot of biopics at the time. I mean, Tombstone, the amount of work that he put in, this has been on our list for season 2. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And that his playing Doc Holliday is so good. And just because of the dialect that he used in that, and we're going to, just a quick side note, that he had a dialect guy because Doc Holliday was this aristocrat from
Southern
New Orleans, and dialect doesn't exist anymore. And they're like, what's the closest thing that I can get to they speak? And I mean, he knew Latin, and he was a dentist. He was an actual doctor. And so the amount of time that he put in on that is just kind of taken for granted.
Right. Yeah.
And holy shit, of the Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, 2 movies that came out, I think almost the same year. They were making basically the same movie back to back.
Yeah, anyways.
So Chris flies the drone. It flies out the window, breaks. He's like,
"Oh my God, it's heading for the gas tanks."
It's heading for the gas tank. They dive on the ground. Then we see Hawthorne's house, right?
Yeah.
Then we cut to Hawthorne's house.
Yeah.
Do you have anything left to add about that scene where they're both laying on the floor?
I mean, other than, would you constitute that as a design problem or a launch problem?
A launch problem or a design problem?
A design flaw or a launch flaw? Yeah. Just no, not really. I mean, that scene kind of it sets the groundwork for his character and Mitch's character, the dynamic that they have between those two.
We see the 2 geniuses meet.
Yeah. And they're opposites, opposites.
Total opposites.
Yeah. So then we go to Hathaway's house, right? Is that where we're going? Hawthorne's
house. And he's got this house is being built. He's got laborers all over the place.
No, that's Hathaway.
He's mean to him. Oh, Hathaway. Okay. So at this point I was like, just taking notes way too fast. Hathaway.
Yeah.
He yells at the dog. I mean, the guy's just an asshole.
Yeah.
And so we established that.
Is that when he meets Chris, or is that when he's driving and the guy is telling him, when the guys cancel a program, they run an audit.
The guy drops Hathaway off at his house, and the whole way there, Hathaway's kind of just smugly sitting in the car, and then hey, fraud's a felony. So you're like, okay, so this is all fraud. He's a fraudster.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, he's taking the money that they're paying him, and he's
right. And now he's got to produce this. He's got to deliver because they paid him. So he's built this house, and he's got we find out there's like oak floors and.
Well, I mean, and he also is he's a jerk. I mean, what are you guys looking at? You're laborers. You're supposed to be laboring. That's what happens when you don't have an education. That kind of thing where it's just, oh my goodness, man.
Right. You just happen to pull up at break time.
Yeah.
But all he sees is you guys standing around.
Yeah.
And then the dog comes running up out of nowhere, and he's like, go on, get out of here. Like, this guy's mean to dogs?
Yeah.
Okay. That's, big time red flags everywhere. Mitch is introduced to the crew, Chris's crew, building the lasers. Kent. And the other 2 guys are, and I read their names at the beginning. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned the big 3 guys at the beginning. Carter and Cornell.
Yeah, Cornell. Yeah. And they're introduced to Mitch. And again, a great scene that sets up another dynamic to other antagonists, which is basically these are the kind of villains of the story because, other than Hathaway,
Kent is for sure.
Right. But it's the swarmy, sycophant, type of person that isn't in it for anything other than power and influence and all that kind of thing.
He's a big suck up.
Yeah. And again, it's like, just leave him by the door and leave. Leave what by the door? Wait, sandwiches.
Right. I think he works. He's delivering food sandwiches to him.
And then he's like, I was supposed to read your stuff and, check it. Check it for what? Oh, mistakes, I guess. He says you guys are having trouble. He says, no. Listen, this is how it works. It goes from God to Jerry.
He bends down to talk to him. Listen here, sonny boy. So just condescending to him.
And then when Jerry walks in, he's like, oh, hey, Jerry, I told you you're not allowed to use my name.
Right. He gets smacked around a little bit. Kent realizes he's like, and then so what I need you to do is photocopy everything for Mitch and then pick up the clothes. He's got to go to
what
pick
does
up the
he
dry
say before
cleaning.
that? He goes, sure, Jerry. Kent, what? What, you want me to teach your sophomore class for you? No, I want you to make photocopies of everything that's been done because I want young Mitch up to speed. And he's just like, yeah, whatever you say.
One of the two guys in that group, he's like, "Where's Knight?
Yeah,
Oh, he didn't bother to show up today."
yeah.
And it was either Carter or Cornell says, "Well, so I told him you better be here," and he's like, "No," and I said, "Well, you better come, you better." And Hathaway's listening to this whole story. He's like, "Wow, that is a great story."
I see you stopped your stuttering.
The stuttering, yeah, I've been giving myself electroshock. Yeah, up the voltage.
Up the voltage.
These little things. I mean, that's a great. I mean, in the '80s, this is funny stuff,
dude.
right?
It's rapid fire. It isn't.
It's
like,
rapid fire.
Yeah, it isn't like let's try to make the moment comedic by doing these kind of broad strokes. It's just bam, bam, bam. I'm out. It's just a rapid fire, and while you're absorbing one little ting that he gives you, then it's off. He's already on two more. And it's like you just have to be fast, sharp.
Yeah, Atherton's so good in this role,
dude. Amazing, and he does. This is 1 year removed from Ghostbusters. So he kind of plays the same kind of guy in that one, which is level 10 as well.
Man has no penis.
Dickless over here.
The old Dickless over here.
And so then after that becomes when what is that? The ice when
they go out and all of a sudden they're ice skating in the house.
Yeah.
And there's just a skate party going on, and Y&T's Summertime Girls is blasting. And I was just like, wait, hang on a minute. Dude, I know this song, and I'm listening to this. Y&T had one hit, right? One commercial hit.
Well, I don't even know the hit, but this was the song that I heard.
It came out in 1985. Y&T. I'm like sort of a fan. I mean, it's glam rock through and through, right? It's Dave Manichetti wrote like 50 albums full of just the same kind of rock song.
Yeah,
he's so good, dude. He's like 5 feet tall. He is an absolute guitar master. He plays a Les Paul Sunburst. That thing's from legit 1965 Sunburst, and I've seen him live at the Mystic. Every year that he would come around, they would always play the Mystic every single year, and it would just be a fun thing to go see. These guys just still in their like 60s, I think, at that point. This is 15 years ago. This is when we were in our band.
Yeah.
But I'd go see Y&T at the Mystic. Sold out show every year. I think they probably still come back to the Mystic right around the holidays. They come like mid-December. It's a major stop for them. And then they have one hit, and it's Summertime Girls. So they're ice skating to Summertime Girls. And I'm like, that's just that is such a nice little thing to do in this movie.
Yeah.
Where, right. I mean,
yeah. That was,
hey, how did all this ice get in here?
Right.
I was just in this room and there was no ice. And it turns out Ick, the scientist, has developed an ice that only lasts like an hour. And he's able to do the whole, they've got a ramp.
And it goes from solid to gas.
To gas without nothing gets, so good.
Yeah. But this is also establishes the relationships that Mitch is going to have with these people.
He's meeting the whole gang.
Yeah, he's meeting the whole gang. And Chris is kind of showing you he just wants to have fun. And he gets to it later why he's this way. But it shows you that he's just here to have a good time. He knows he's smart. He knows whatever test that he needs to take, he's going to pass. He knows that it's just about having fun and the boredom that he must feel to try and get this, and he tells you why, but it's great. The lines from this scene for me,
he is bored, isn't he? Because he's like, he's a great ice skater.
Yeah.
He's doing these they're literally ice skating in this
His
house.
Pirouettes are great. Yeah.
Yeah, they really are. He's doing the whole,
and the lines in this movie though are the scene are just amazing. It's just kind of his mock outrage about, there was no entries for the mutant hamster races. We had one entry for the Madame Curie lookalike, but he was later disqualified. Why do I even bother? Just this idea that he's just like trying to create all this chaos and have fun, and I love this scene as well. This is one of the
he creates a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we get to meet Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan. Yes,
we get to meet Jordan for the first time. Is she the cutest of all? She is absolutely adorable.
Yeah, she was the nerd in Revenge of the Nerds, Gilbert's girlfriend, and and for some reason she was in The Outsiders as well.
Yeah.
And then she kind of just disappeared. and she was on a roll, man. She was a great actress. But yeah, she is cute as a button in this one. Talks really fast and
Yeah.
doesn't sleep and
She
just
doesn't sleep.
makes everything. She makes a sweater. She makes I don't know.
Yeah,
Her room.
she's like an elf in the movie Elf, where she knitted him a sweater that
Yeah,
night.
yeah,
She's all, "Do you need a bed? I'll make you a bed."
yeah, and
I
it's
mean,
like
you're like, "Wait, you
her
can make
dorm
me a
room.
bed?"
Her dorm room is not a dorm room; it's a workshop. She's
Yeah.
got the tools on the. She's lofted her bed, so she's got the tools on the wall and her workbench, and she's at one point she's sanding her floors.
Yes. She's got.
She's just the cutest as ever.
Yeah.
And
You
then
fall in love with Jordan through this thing.
yeah,
They try to make her look kind of frumpy, but you're just like,
yeah,
I think I
we'll
kind
get
of
to
love Jordan.
we'll kind of get to an awkward little point in their relationship, but we'll get to that later. But
Yeah.
then Kent comes in and was like, "Here's all the notes. Your brain's gonna turn to mush." And he's Val Kilmer again. Oh, that's so mean. We were gonna make you king of the winter
Right. He's like, "What
carnival.
is all this?" Well, it's ice.
Yeah.
It's what happens when water turns to solid, or liquid turns to
Who's
solid.
this? This is Kent. This is what happens when and just his whole intro. But and then Ken is like, who's gonna clean this up? You don't have to. It's gonna go from solid to gas form. Really? Yeah. And how did you make that happen? I'm not saying. And then he goes, sure, I'll tell you. You tell somebody. Next thing you know, we're in the middle of another ice age. Dude, just line after line is just so quotable in this movie.
Ick is great. Ick is definitely a real genius for sure.
Yeah. Well, you see the different personalities that all these geniuses have. People, and you've known people like this. But then after this scene, take us away. Take us.
Yeah, so they go back into the dorm room, and Uncle Rico walks through again, into Narnia, and Chris and Mitch is just, hang on. And he goes to try to figure it out. And it's weird that when John Gry's character walks through and Mitch sees it, whenever that happens, Chris is suddenly behind him. And having not seen it for 30 years, I went, hang on, because I hadn't remembered what was going on. And if you've never seen this movie before, you're almost like to the point where at this point I've seen this guy twice, and when he goes in there, he disappears, and then Chris is right behind. He's in the room. Are they the same guy? And the answer to that is no, they're not the same guy. But I was like, that's really weird. They wake up in the morning, or they now cut to morning scene. We have the obligatory Val Kilmer with no shirt on scene in there, and he comes walking out, hairs all over the place, and he takes something out of the freezer, and he's cutting liquid nitrogen into coins to put into the vending machine. He makes himself some coffee.
Right. Yeah.
And Mitch is just like, is that liquid nitrogen? Yeah. This is just the kind of stuff that Chris does.
Yeah. And again, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, he tells him, he's like, it's just really weird. There's this guy. Why does he keep going into our closet?
Well, why do you keep going to our closet?
Going to our closet?
Because, well, to get my clothes. But that's not why he goes in there. Of course not. He's twice your size. He wouldn't fit into your clothes.
It wouldn't fit into your clothes.
Oh, you know what it is? The first thing he says, when he sees Chris, to open that scene, he walks into the little kitchenette area.
Yeah.
He goes, I saw the weirdest thing last night. And Chris says, was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of a sun god robes on a pyramid with 1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at you? Mitch is like, no. Because why am I the only one that has that dream? Right. So, yeah.
So then we have this montage scene.
The first montage
of them, and montages, baby. This is the first of many montages in this movie. And montages are good for a little bit of things are happening more and more as things go on.
Well, you see the daily things of people just going to school, going to class and doing homework and figuring how the daily life works, And
you get to, and as somebody who's taken film school, this. We talked about this in when we did Clerks, and that's the reason why you show putting a filter in the filter pot and then putting coffee in it sets the scene and it sets the tone. But with montages, you get to play funky music, and you get to show people getting a little bit better and then a little bit gooder at that thing.
A little bit,
but they're like, and time is going by, and now we're progressing through the story. And
you can condense time,
Yes, it's doing a lot. We're smash cut. Like it shows Mitch in class, and there's all the students, and then you see Mitch again in class, and half the students are now been replaced by boom boxes that are recording the lecture. And then by the end of the next time you see Mitch, he's the only one in the room, and he's the only one. And then the teacher's giving a lecture, and then the fourth time he goes in, even the lecturer is now a reel-to-reel tape just playing. I mean, everybody's checked out. But Mitch he's there to do a job. Mitch is
Right.
serious about this.
Yeah. Kind of the wake up call of like, and what she says later in the movie of like, this is just, I thought it was going to be different, but it's just the same. And it is. Even when you graduate college, like you go out in the world and you just notice that everything's just like, it's like elementary school, then high school. It's cliques and there's hierarchies. There's always going to be cliques and judgment and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, oh. And it's kind of that wake up call that we all have of like, of, I don't know, just go ahead.
You're right. It's and I give my mom from time to time. I give her a hard time. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that everybody's just so bad at what they do?
Yeah.
Like the idea we're supposed to listen to the adults and respect the adults when we're little kids and everything, and then it turns out the adults are kind of freaking morons.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end, the professor's just phoning it in, and Mitch is the only one in this room. Everyone's got tape recorders and in the boom boxes, and then the freaking professors are reel to reel.
Yeah.
So they go back to the dorm room, and it's a really great point where you're just like, we're just all big kids at a certain point, right? It's just, and Mitch is 15, just all, nobody told me it was going to be. Like, nobody takes anything. Does anybody take anything serious around here?
Right.
Who am I supposed to listen to? I just have to listen to myself.
Well, it's kind of like the whole platoon thing when at the end where Charlie Sheen is like, Elias and Barnes, Raw called it, they were fighting for possession of my soul, which I think in this movie, you kind of get that between Hathaway and Chris Knight. It's like this kind of yin yang thing where each of them are trying to kind of educate Mitch in the ways of what it is that's important. And like Chris tells him later in the movie, he's like, when you're smart, people need you. And you can use that intelligence creatively as well as intellectually. Not everything, which is a callback to, another Val Kilmer movie, Red Planet. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, I do remember Red Planet.
So when they're having that conversation with General Zod, I forget his old man brand, I forget his name.
Sure, no, I know you're talking about.
But when they're having that, he's like, I was a scientist. But it got to the point where, it became all science, no philosophy, and that's what kind of Chris is saying to Mitch here is that you need to find that balance between like knowledge and intellect and where that line is and how they marry. So you can kind of navigate yourself through life and just not have everything as kind of a win all be all kind of thing. And I think it's kind of the beauty and the underlying kind of message in this movie is that battle between Hathaway and Chris Knight. And because I think, Hathaway is kind of like where Chris and Mitch, where he was this intellectual, but then as he got older, he never really got into of kind of how do I help people? How do I do this? He was just always into I'm important, I'm the best. And as kids would say back in my day, he was the sellout. He was the one that
he is a sellout.
Right. And the Rainmaker when Rudy Baylor when Matt Damon is questioned by John Voight. And he says, I was just wondering when it was, remember when you sold out, and John Voight's like, you motherfucker. But anyways.
It's the last thing you want to tell a sellout is to throw it back in their face because they know and they have to think about that. The last thing that goes through their heads probably, I'm such a fucking fraud.
Yeah.
But it's, Chris's lesson, and he tells Mitch this at certain points, is like a good leader. He's constantly giving him leadership skills.
Right.
Throughout this movie, and they're not to be taken lightly. And for him, being a leader, he doesn't necessarily want to be a leader. He understands that when bringing the kid in, you're about to graduate. I mean, he's about to graduate. I'm out of here.
Right.
I'm Casper. Yeah. But at the end of the montage, we see Uncle Rico walk through again. And at this time, Mitch finds the way into this super elaborate tunnel system that's way over. I love how it's like it's got steam pipes and there's big pulley systems, and then he's in a cart that goes to, it's a callback to the cart from the toboggan from the ice from earlier. And that goes down this little thing. It's like Goonies almost in this, where you're just like, what is all this? There's like a roller coaster in this thing. And he goes down and he sees the guy's real. And he's down there and he's working on something.
Well, it's kind of,
right? He's down in this secret workshop that's way underground, however that worked out. Like what, and so that's when Chris ends up, that cuts away from that. And when you're thinking, here's where Mitch he's going to turn and see Mitch that's hiding behind the pipe rack over there. He's just peeks his little head out, and he sees him, and all these things are firing out of this machine, and we don't know what's going on yet, what all those things are, but we're going to find out.
Right. Well, I think that's a call. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
That was it. No, that's it. Yeah.
I think that's a callback to Alice in Wonderland. Going down the hole, going down the rabbit hole. And and the first, it's closing the door, another one opens, right? So it's this thing where he goes down and he starts to realize, but this isn't just a guy hiding in a closet. It's somebody. It's what's he doing in this thing? And so the next scene when he's talking to Chris about it, right? That's the next scene when he's like, I have this disturbing whatever guy, and he's like, oh, you've seen him too?
Yeah.
And so you start the mystery starts to unravel, and he starts to get his eyes open to this.
Well, he had already mentioned that was what are you doing? What were you doing?
And that's.
But the one door closes and the other one opens. That's wow! I hadn't put that together. See?
Oh yeah,
it's really smart. There's a lot of these little things where, I mean, you've seen it hundreds of times, right? This is, you said, maybe one of your all-time favorite movies.
Yeah.
And I get it now. I was just like, really? Okay. And then, when you texted me that on Wednesday, you're like, hey, what if we do this movie? I was like, oh, yeah. I could go back and revisit that one. It's not the Val. I knew why, because, Val Kilmer just died.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, we're going to get to the next scene. The next scene, kind of things change. Kind of almost like an act 2 at this point, kind of starts up.
Exactly.
So down there in the steam pipes, any final thoughts to put on that?
I think
we see Laszlo down there working.
Well,
I've been calling him Uncle Rico the whole time because we don't know his name yet, but we're about to find out.
It's just more of the one door closes, the other one opens, and that you sometimes have to close the door on whatever's kind of your old habits or your old way of looking at things. So that's how I always took that. It was that.
I didn't put that together. That's really great. That's really insightful. Yeah.
And so I think that carries a little weight too. And there's a bunch of examples of that stuff all peppered throughout this movie. And like you said earlier, it's not overt. It's not like this thing where it's hammering you over the head. It's disguised as this little teen comedy adventure. And, it's really pretty heavy in some parts. But yeah.
It is. And it's so, yeah. And that's the whole point, is that don't take the genius maybe too seriously.
Right.
Chris is summoned to Hathaway's house. It's still under construction, right? They go in there. Oh, well, he's standing there on the front porch eating popcorn. And Hathaway comes running up from his run.
Get out of here! Get!
And the dog's back, and he shoos the dog away, and the laborers are doing their thing, and they're actually working. And what is that smell? Oh God, I can't stand popcorn. You're having popcorn?
Yeah.
Oh God, get that out of here. And he's like, good, now I know what to get you for Christmas, or I knew it. Yeah. Something along those lines. So they go in there. They go into his office, they sit down. Hathaway tells him, listen, you got to finish this project, and you got to finish it by May.
Yeah.
You got to have
5 megawatts.
5 megawatts by May. And Chris is like, dude, you're dreaming. And he's like, don't understand. You understand.
Yeah.
I graduate.
Look,
and Hathaway's like, no, you don't.
Yeah. And
no,
he's like,
graduate.
hey, Chris is coming, or Mitch is coming along. He's doing great. He's working his guts out for you. What do you want? I want 5 megawatts by mid-May.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, Chris, I don't care if you're arrogant. I don't care if you're whatever. And he goes, but you're influencing Mitch and whatever. And that's when he has that whole speech about, look, I'm gone. Like, I'm out of here. Like,
yeah.
And then he's like, well, I may have something to say about that, and that's the first hint.
You have to pass my class in order to graduate. And this is how you pass the class.
And so he kind of says, hey, Jerry, what'd you say? There's a lot of decaffeinated brands on the market today.
Yes. He's like, listen, and I'm telling you this because I care. There are a lot of decaffeinated brands on the market today that are just as tasty as the real thing. And
I'm serious, Chris.
Me too, Jerry. I'm like, pause. I'm because I had forgotten this was like every coffee commercial that was out. There was so much of this going on in the 80s where we were just beat over the head with like Folgers crystals and Sanka and all these different, and they're just, oh, he never has a second cup at our house. And we were beat over the head with this. Yeah. So that just that's why that line is in this movie, is that if you're growing up at the time, oh my God, you get it nonstop. There's a lot of decaffeinated brands that are just as tasty as the real thing.
And what's he saying to that? What's he saying to him? He's basically saying, dude, chill out.
Yeah. He's telling him to chill. Right.
Yeah. So
and they both come to an agreement. Like, they agree to disagree.
Right.
But he's like, no, I'm serious. And Chris says, no, I am too.
Yeah.
Not about the decaffeinated thing, but just, listen, just you're picking a fight with somebody. I'm not the bad guy here.
Right. Right. And at this point too, Chris knows that he can go toe to toe with him intellectually. So, and maybe even a little smarter. But the whole setup of the whole movie is that he's recruited by the CIA. Hathaway is, and he's only telling Chris what he needs to know, and that is, I need this power supply of 5 megawatts by mid. That's all you need to know. Why? I'm not going to tell you why, but just I need this power and I need it.
That's right.
And you see the CIA guy coming around and going, dude, where is it? And he's like, we're not making cheese sandwiches here. You can't dictate innovation. He's using his power of manipulation to tell this dude, I got it. I'm smart. I'll figure it out. But then, the deadline gets moved and you see Hathaway starting to fall apart as the movie kind of progresses, which is it's funny to watch because you see him. To everybody else, he's like, whatever. But then the general comes in and he's like, oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Oh, no problems. We'll have that to you. And what's the next scene after that?
So Chris takes it to heart. He's like, well, we got this thing that we have to do. We've got to get this project done.
Yeah.
And they use the lasers to do a kind of a weird laser light show that is a hidden message that shows everybody how to get to the hidden party.
So how does he introduce that? That is one of my great favorite scenes as well. Mitch is working in the lab.
He's working in the lab.
And he's getting brain fry because Chris is never there. He doesn't know how to use this certain thing. And he's like, oh, I was just in. He goes, here, have a taste. Just, you won't hurt my feelings. Have a taste.
Oh, yes. He's got the
So what is it? He's like, I don't know. I just found it.
I just found it in the lab.
Oh, man. And then he's like, that's just yogurt.
Yeah, it's just yogurt.
My favorite line of this scene is, all right, I'm serious. He's like, all right, you know what, Mitch? Take a step back. No, I'm sorry. Take a step forward. Now take a step back. Take a step forward. Now take a step back. And now we're cha-chaing. And he goes, will you stop it? All right.
It's very Fletch, right?
Yeah.
That's very Fletch of him to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he sets up his little mirrors while Mitch is doing something in the cage, setting the parameters of the flux capacitors. And then we go ahead. Then we get the secret message.
So so this laser gets shown all across campus, and it lights up above this doorway. And
it's a laser, you idiot!
And that's how people know where the secret party is. And they go in, and they've like filled a pool and a slide from the stage down into the pool, and there's girls everywhere. There's pretty girls everywhere, and
they're beauticians.
They're from a nearby college.
Wanda Tressler's.
Yeah, Wanda Tressler's school of beauty, is it, or something like that? School. They're beauticians.
Yeah,
not yet.
Again, full of one-liners in this. Go ahead. Sorry.
And the nerds they don't know what to do. They've never really. You can tell they're all fish out of water here. Pardon the pun. And Chris tells them, guys, look. Maybe for the first time and the only time in your lives. What does he tell me? You might get laid or something along those lines.
In your entire lives to meet women.
It's a meet women because these guys are So there's a keg and there's
burgers.
Food.
Yeah.
There's burgers and there's just pretty girls everywhere. And it cuts to Hathaway at the studio, and he's filming his television show called
Public
Everything.
Access. Yeah.
Public access television show called Everything. This is why he's famous. This is why people were getting his autograph in the beginning. And I'm like, Of course it's called everything. He's a supreme narcissist.
Yes.
And there's like Carl Sagan has Cosmos on TV, and there's, there's some science shows out there. But Hathaway's taken it a step further, and his show's just called Everything.
Today,
And he's not super good at this.
No, the way he delivers his lines. And today, welcome, we're going to talk about something that's taken for granted. The colon.
Yeah, and they do a multiple takes on this. He's got, okay, take 4. And Kent comes in, rats out that there's a party going on. Kent is
with girls,
right?
Yeah,
with girls. And Kent and Hathaway go and bust the party up. And Mitch is sad.
Jordan shows up. Yeah, Jordan shows up.
Jordan, right.
Wait. What's her name? Is that her name in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're talking about Jordan, the cute girl from... Yeah. And she's into Mitch, and he's into her too. There's a 4 or 5 year age difference.
Well, I think the premise was that they bonded intellectually. So they're at this party, and Mitch gets busted and gets chewed out.
Yes,
because he's
supposed to be in the lab nonstop.
Right,
he's got one job. Hathaway's pissed, so he goes home and cries to mom and dad on the phone.
Yeah,
which is recorded by Kent. And the 3 guys. They record him. So in the morning they go to have breakfast, and everybody's in the cafeteria, and Kent and his crew play the recording of Mitch crying home to mom and dad.
Yeah.
And he's mortified, right?
Well, you see, and what's interesting about this scene is that everybody's pointing and laughing at him. But if you watch it again, there's a young woman sitting next to him while they're eating. And as it pans to the different tables and everybody's pointing and laughing at Mitch, when it gets back to Mitch and it's panning down his table to him, you see the girl that's sitting next to him going, like she feels bad. I think that was an excellent choice by that extra, because there's this thing of like everybody's ganging up on him, and there's that one, because that's how I would probably react. It's
100%. I mean, everybody's a nerd at this school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Kent's a nerd, and they're all nerds. Chris is a nerd,
right?
But the class warfare seems to be going.
Yeah.
It's got that Revenge of the Nerds where the lambdas are being bullied by the alpha betas, right?
Yeah, right.
And Chris is now like, he's literally bawling on the phone to his parents, and you're like, I don't know if this is
mom and dad.
This is the lowest, and dad's just like, dad. Then he's like, here, talk to your dad, and like mom and dad are passing the phone. But I mean, this is as mortifying as it gets. This is the lowest point in your life, right?
Well,
he's like, I can't face these people anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's when Chris comes to him and gives him that speech of like,
people, smart people.
Yeah.
And when you're smart, people need you.
Yeah. Right. And
he gets that pep talk. And Chris tells Mitch the story of Laszlo. And he's like, here's what's up. Here's Laszlo.
Why he lives in the
Holyfield.
Yeah.
Holyfield.
Yeah. Something like that.
I think he says it Holyfield. I think you're right. Yeah. I think, And
Holyfield, that's what he says.
Holyfield. Thank you. Yeah. That's right. So Chris convinces Mitch to stay, and they're like, look, just fucking...
You got to get back at Ken. It's a moral imperative.
Yes. And they have a primal scream, right? Just fucking... And now
now you do it.
And they do it. So they come to an agreement. Now they're the same. And now it's fully on, right? Now we're going to the plot to bring this whole thing down.
Well, they've Chris Val Kilmer has kind of shown his cards and says, "Look, dude, I'm trying to help you by trying to get you to loosen up. Life isn't all. It's what does he say? It's all science, no philosophy. You got to have some sort of reason why you're doing this, and find your reason, and find it doesn't matter what that reason is, because people need all sorts of types of people. That's the message I got from it. And so then now they're united.
Because what happened was to Laszlo is he took everything way too seriously, and he went crazy. He was the 12-year-old that they were referring to in the beginning and he lost it, right? Or however they put it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's now living in a freaking steam tunnel under the building, who comes out very quietly.
Yeah. Goes
and gets food, I guess. But he's only, in his mind, he's still a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's very childlike, but you could see when he delivers lines later in the movie, you
Mm-hmm.
see how he how John Grise played that, which is so excellent because you see him calculating everything of like there's a line later in the movie where he's like, oh, he's a good looking kid, he's gonna grow 5 inches in the
Yeah,
next
he's going
year.
to grow 5 inches next year. You're
You
like,
know,
what?
it's like,
What the hell?
yeah, you know, but you see that calculation in his eyes. He's like, because everything he just, and again at the end he kind of comes through with some insight, but
He really does.
yeah, but you know, at this point, well, the scene we're talking about is that Chris and Mitch are united. They're united
Yes,
front. They
they're a
know each
united
other.
front.
They understand each other now because up until this point, Chris was just another thing to battle for Mitch, which is
Right.
trying to fit in, trying to find his place in this university or find his place in the world, basically, of
Yeah.
like, I'm a nerd or I'm super intelligent. What do I do with this? You know, and
Yeah.
Mitch only knows how to study. And so now they're
Yeah.
united and he can trust Chris as an ally to kind of get back at Kent, which is the first thing they do to kind of bond.
Yes. They get back at Kent. So this is probably a good time to take another break from our sponsor. Pikachu!
You remember where we left off?
Oh, yes, I sure do. Yeah.
Okay.
So now it's on. And we notice that Mitch has now started wearing some more casual clothes than he's been wearing. He's really starting the wardrobe's loosening up a little bit, and they see Kent come park his car.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they start disassembling it. We don't know what they're doing to it, but Ick and the rest of them, and Jordan's, kind of keeping an eye out on everything.
Okay, okay, guys.
She's so good.
I love her.
She is so good in this role. You absolutely love her. And excuse me.
Yeah. So they get
Chris goes back to Hathaway's house, Hawthorne's house.
Hathaway.
He shows up at night, and this beautiful girl opens the door, and they proceed to have the most confusing conversation on Earth that's ever happened. Where he's trying to talk to her, and she says next to nothing, and
Hello?
I'm like, I'm just waiting. And he's confused by
another line that I've said to women before, and it's like when he says, if there's anything I could do for you, or more to the point to you, just let me know. And it's just, this whole scene is full of kind of like it's showcasing what Chris Knight is basically, again, showing a disdain for any kind of social structure that you need to follow when you're conversing with another person. And it's throwing this girl off that she has no idea what he's talking about. And he's like, Dr. Hathaway told me to stop by. What did he have you do? She's like, excuse me? Which word didn't you understand? And then you have the guys coming out.
Yeah, they come out of he's meeting with the CIA guys, right?
Yeah.
He's in there.
High ranking.
Very high ranking. And it turns out that this is Decker, who was in the opening scene with the laser.
Yeah.
It's his daughter, Susan. And so this one's for Nolan, because when I told him we were doing Real Genius, he said, oh, that might be my all-time favorite movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And he's like, oh, yeah. And Chris says to Susan, or he says to Decker, have you ever seen a woman with a body like this? And he goes, that's my daughter. And he goes, so then
I guess you have.
Well, I guess you have.
And he's not flustered by that. That's another thing. He's not flustered by anything. Well, I guess you have then.
And she asks Chris, can you nail a 6-inch spike
through a board with your penis? Not now.
Not now.
Girl's got to have her standards.
That's right. That was the thing the line that he repeated to me, and I was like, I missed it on my first read through as I was furiously typing as all these things are going. And they all leave, and Chris turns to Hathaway and he says, that is a very smart girl.
Right. Because what are you doing here? Well, you told me to come by. Take off your shoes. And then this is where the pan and scan always went from Hathaway and panned in camera, which are not in camera, but like with the video editing software, whatever they use.
It doesn't do this anymore.
No, it's the wider. Right. It's the wider aspect ratio. So now you have the whole thing, but it's like, you are no longer any useful to me. So that's an interesting way to open a conversation. And he goes, I'm going to give Kent the Darlington job. So are you suddenly find humor? You already gave me that job. He's like, and then he goes on to say something like, you need to pass my class. He's like, I could pass your test. He's like, well, even if you pass, you don't pass. And in fact, I don't see why you don't leave the premises right now. And it's just this battle. Now it's brass tacks, because now that CIA person was telling him, look, we need to have this. If you can't do it, we'll find someone else who can, probably, but that means you know too much. Right, exactly. You know too much. So yeah, so now you have this battle of wits, I suppose. But he's like, fine, I'll go to the dean, and the work I've done should merit a degree. He's like, well, who do you think he's gonna believe, me or you? And he's like, you unbelievable bastard. You bet on it. And so he leaves, and now the dynamic is switched. So now Mitch has to come out, which at first he does a terrible job of doing, of comforting Chris. It's like, oh, Hathaway's gonna fuck me out of school, and he's like, well, you just can't leave. You owe me $10. And Val Kilmer's like, and so Mitch sees that.
He's like, well, you can't quit or you'll be a failure.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch.
Thank you. Thanks, Mitch.
And then he goes, you can't go, if only to see a 5 megawatt laser and a fire. He's like, you have to get back at Hathaway. It's a moral imperative. You're right. Thank you. And then they go, or what is this? A montage number 3?
Then we get the second montage.
2.
And it's this song that's like Man in the Making, or like My Motivation.
Yeah.
And it's just
number 1.
Things are happening more and more. That's right. It's this kind of weird. Yeah.
It fits the 80s. It's a synth heavy.
Yes.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. I love that.
We start to see Chris buckle down. He's doing math. He's mathing.
He's going to classes.
He's going to class. He's taking things serious. We start to see Chris start to take things a little seriously now.
Yeah.
And we see Uncle Rico peek his little head out of the wardrobe from Narnia.
And then he sees them both studying.
They have another primal scream moment where
the guy's like,
lasers are blowing shit up. Yeah.
Nobody bats an eye. Everybody's just like,
it was very Summer School, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was very Chainsaw in Summer School, where it was tension breaker, had to be done.
Yeah, right. So,
lasers are blowing shit up, and then we see Laszlo show up, and he comes walking into the room with these stacks, and we're like, he's going to say something.
Yeah.
And Chris looks at him and is just like, yes?
Uh-huh.
And he tells everybody, he's like, so he looks at what these things are. These are these things he was printing out. That machine was cranking out.
Yeah,
he's been entering the Frito-Lay sweepstakes.
Well, he goes, I've looked up on the computer every question that Hathaway's ever asked on his test. And Val Kilmer's like, are those they? And he's like, no, these are the Frito-Lay sweepstakes. Enter as many times as you'd like. No purchase necessary. He goes, oh, that takes the fun out of it, doesn't it? They set up the rules.
Yeah.
Lately, I found that I have certain materialistic needs.
He's ready to get out of the steam tunnel.
Yeah. He's like, I predict I'm going to win 48% of the prizes. And then, so then he goes, well, where are they? Well, I memorized them. And so then he's like, oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Mitch is like, okay, I got to go to bed. I got to get some sleep. Goes into the room, and it's all dark, and he hears a woman's voice.
Yeah.
Mitch? And he's
Jordan?
like, Jordan?
Yeah.
And turns the light on, and it's Sherry Nugel from the opening scene.
Yeah.
From the beginning. She's been waiting in this room, and she's like, I've been waiting for you for 3 years. And I'm like,
oh,
15 since he was 12. That's okay. That's super freaking gross.
Right.
And she wants him.
Because she has to make it with all 10. That's her goal.
That's her goal. It's the top 10 minds of the world.
Right.
And so Mitch leaves, and he goes to Jordan. He goes to seek Jordan out, who's belt sanding her floors. It's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
She doesn't sleep, remember.
Right.
I dig this scene a lot, because I don't know if you ever worked a belt sander. It's the loudest thing on earth, right?
Yeah.
It basically shakes the whole house. And she turns to, he's like, do you mind turning it off? Turn it off. Like, oh, sorry. She's like, oh, why are you so sweaty? And he's like, well, there was this woman there. And she, pardon?
Pardon, yeah.
Pardon. And she's heartbroken, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you talked to another female of the human persuasion?
And she wanted to jump my...
She wanted to jump you?
Yeah, how do I say this as not to offend you?
Offending you? Yeah.
She wanted to jump your bones? Yeah, but I did. What? Well, I wanted to, but not with her.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
pardon?
Yeah.
And so they make out. And now Mitch is 15, still 15, and she's
19.
established that she's 19.
You're right.
So still a little bit gross,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And by the way,
Something that
in
didn't age
this
well.
well, but you're like, this is the couple that they belong together,
Right. And then you're
right?
rooting for him. So, yeah.
And
So,
she's 19, but she's 15.
yeah. Right. She has some social issues as well, I think.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. She doesn't sleep. She's
She
There's
her roommate, had to be taken away in an ambulance. I don't know if that had anything to do with me, but whatever. Yeah.
right.
She's fine now. Yeah.
I do like the part where she turns the belt sander off, the loudest machine that you can invent. Yeah, just
So now her and Jordan are an item. Now her are joined. They're on the same team. It's kind of understood.
A couple at this
right.
point.
So now you have him bonding with Chris, Jordan, the other guy's Ick, and now you have a team.
Yes.
The Avengers have been assembled.
Yes.
And so
they're a unified force, and then it cuts immediately to Hawthorne being threatened. Hathaway, damn it. Being threatened with you have 1 week to produce this laser. We're now down to 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And Hathaway loses his shit.
Yeah.
He's
yelling
and screaming, yeah.
I'm doing my best. I have exams.
Yes.
Get off my back. That kind of thing.
Yes. And then cut to Chris, who's now, they've got this engine figured out, and he's got it frozen. Like, they've realized that if we cool it down.
Right, but how does he reach that? So it's a callback.
Well, from the kitchen scene where he had
they're taking the test. Hathaway has taken a final or whatever it is. And they're like, all right, are you going to take it, Chris? And he's like, well, he's had the trouble of making one. I guess I'll go. And then Kent's like, well, you guys go. I'll meet you later. I got to go to the bathroom. And Chris goes, okay, Kent, but is that really going to help your confidence? And then they all leave. And Kent smears one of the lenses or mirrors with oil or grease.
Right.
And then they go take the test. And then you have the test where Chris shows up with an apple. And
I wanted to talk about the apple part too. But Chris is they're freezing the engine, and he tells him, he's all, just cool out. He tells it to cool out. Obviously, pardon the pun. But at this moment, when you see Chris, he looks like a young Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
In the lab at this point, and I'm like, if things don't go well for Chris, then there's a quick montage, and then we go to the exam. Now Chris is in the exam, takes the test, hands Hathaway a note that says, "I aced this," and Hathaway rips it up, throws it away. And then Chris pulls an apple out of his bag, puts it on the desk. Hathaway throws it in the trash, and it explodes. He sets it on his desk.
It blows up.
The mentor never ends up eating that apple, but the apple explodes. Like that would have killed the guy. Would have killed him. Right in front of the whole class.
Well, yeah, that's what I would have thought. And, just upon watching it this week, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying, he probably rigged it so the detonation or the triggering mechanism is when he throws it into that's why he sets it so delicately down on the desk.
Okay.
And so he takes it, and once he throws it down, he knew he was going to throw it away. So once he threw it in the garbage, the detonation or the trigger mechanism is from the force.
You're probably right.
I'm just trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
You don't think he's actually trying to kill this person in front of 30 other people?
No.
Because it would have been pretty easy to solve that crime.
Yeah.
So he leaves the room, goes to the post-exam decompression party.
Yeah.
And fucking Summertime Girls by Y&T is playing again. Woo!
Well, Kent is like, no, he goes back to the dorm, and Kent's like, sorry for your blow up or whatever. Val's like, what blow? Oh, no, he goes back to the laser. That's what it is. And he starts the laser experiment, right? And then that's when
they do go, but Chris goes to the decompression party first, and he goes to the decompression party, and then they go back and they figure out that the laser actually works.
Okay,
they've got the laser to work. They've cracked the code on this thing.
Well, no,
Kent made the mirror.
Yeah, well, Kent when he puts the grease, it hits the grease and it blows up the whole thing. So then Chris gets despondent, goes back to the dorms, and was like, he that's when he realizes Kent sabotaged it. And he goes, "Oh, you son of a bitch." He's, "Oh, you should have checked your mirrors." And he punches the freezer, the refrigerator, to see it, the frozen stuff comes out,
That's
and he's
it.
sitting on the ground, and he's like, and then he makes that realization, I got to freeze the thing.
Yes.
And then he goes
You got
back
to
and
freeze
freezes
it.
it. But then he goes
Okay.
to Hathaway's house in the middle of the night with the Spike woman, with the daughter, and he's like, "I solved your power problem." And he's like, "Take a cab." And they take off. And that's when I would say the last probably 20 minutes of this movie is like
Yeah.
a whole nother movie.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's a great point, because
Yeah.
it becomes, and then now it's really quick pace.
Yeah.
Now it's just like it's going. Hathaway, they test the mirror out. It shoots a laser through the whole school, goes through that statue's head.
Yeah.
Hathaway says he's just
You've
like
done it.
He's like, "You graduate. You've
Yeah.
got the job.
You got the job.
That's
my
and
job.
So they go to and Kent's pissed. Kent's a cunt.
Yeah.
And he's pissed. And so the gang goes to celebrate at the punk bar. And Laszlo comes walking in, and he's like, "You guys realize that you basically built a Death Star,
Right.
is what you're doing."
And
at this point, you're kind of like, these guys are real geniuses. Hadn't put two and two. I mean, we've been on since the opening scene that this is what the ultimate goal of this is. But Chris hadn't figured it out.
Well, you see the short-sightedness of because Mitch goes, "Leave it to the engineers to figure it out. That's not our concern." Like, for them,
right.
It's just a project. We need to graduate. We need to get to the next level. This
just
is a project.
Step after step after step. It's a scientific method.
Right.
We're not thinking philosophically, like
Right.
you said.
Exactly.
And they don't realize, oh shit, we're about to create this weapon of mass destruction is what we're doing. It just melted the head through the statue. You guys didn't put it together with like looking at something like that?
Well, and then it goes with, when Laszlo says, all you would need is a mirroring system, and you would have a weapon that could decimate somebody from space. And they're just like, well, Kent built a mirror system.
Mm-hmm.
When Kent's having that's my job. I did everything you asked for. Look, I made you your mirrors. Look,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of all comes like, and to me, this bubble has burst and said, shit, and then they go back to the lab and everything's gone. Within
they go back to, we got to destroy all this.
Yeah. Well, no,
it's
they
gone.
took it. They just took it. They took whatever.
But they were going back to get to destroy. They're like, well, we can't let them do that. By the time they get back to the lab, all the equipment's gone.
Right.
And now they're like, okay, now we gotta. So at that point, I'm like, boy, they didn't really put this together. And again, I was just like, remember, 1985.
Right.
It's 1985. It's
Yeah.
not, these guys didn't think as
I don't
as
think
conspiracy theory as we are more now. I mean, this happy-go-lucky, it's mid-'80s. It's Reaganomics, baby. We're Y&T Summertime Girls is playing, for Christ's sake. We had no care in the world.
Well, yeah, and you would think that Chris would put it together after he saw the military guys at Hathaway's house, which he didn't. Anything I should know about, boys? Which I've done before too, as well. It's always funny to do that, and people are like, "But."
So they go to Kent. They go in. They go look for the laser. It's not there. They go to Kent. Kent's passed out on the keyboard.
Well, no, they put the gas in his room
they gas his room, so he passes out. They put the bug in his tooth.
Kent.
They put that voice modulator in, and this is really, there was a lot of this. So he thinks it's the voice of God that's coming through, and only he can hear it because it's in his fucking tooth.
It's in his braces.
It's in his braces. Yes, there was a lot of that. Remember all the talk of where you could pick up space shuttle conversations with your braces, like on this clear night or whatever. Yeah,
well, and then they're just trying to siphon information from Kent. And
they want to know where it went. Where did it go? Stop touching yourself.
Yeah, and Kent, quit playing with yourself.
Quit playing with yourself.
It is God.
It is God.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Kent becomes like a pussycat at this point. Now he's been charged by God at this point. And he's
at rock bottom.
Yes. Absolute rock bottom.
He got that job taken away. Hathaway doesn't like him. You know, he's not in the inner circle. So now he's like,
what's the point?
Yeah.
But now he's got a point because he's talking to Jesus.
Right. Jesus.
So we get another montage scene. The fourth montage comes through. And they're moving all this stuff into Hathaway's house.
Yeah.
And They dress up like they're going to the Air Force Base, Mitch and Chris, and they go to the front gate, and they're just like, "You're not on the list." They're like, "Oh, we're here to see so and so." They got fake mustaches.
Yeah. Can you
get
hurry
away
up,
with anything
pal?
with a fake mustache back then.
We're in a hurry. He's like, what?
We're about 4 hours late.
Yeah. Look, pal, we're about 3 hours late. If you call that in, that's our jobs. Do us a little favor. You might need some help in the private sector one day.
Well, you're not on the list.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's classified.
Well, and lasers are classified.
Lasers are classified. Aren't you a little young to be scientists?
Well, lasers are young science.
Yeah, lasers are young science.
There you go.
Great. Now we're both fired.
Yeah.
So here it is. So now the crew's. Now we got the crew with Laszlo and Jordan. They are going to manipulate, and Chris and Mitch are at the Air Force Base, and now they're communicating. Abbott to Costello, come in. So this is a callback.
Yeah.
To Crossbow. This is Watchdog. They go immediately back to we're at the very last scene, really, now. They sabotage the system, right?
Yeah.
They
replace one of the guidance system, yeah.
They replace the guidance system. And Jesus talks to Kent again.
They get back and they talk. They be at this place at this time.
Asks him if he's been touching himself. He says, yeah.
I mean, no.
You go to this address on such and such a street. He's like, such a street?
Yeah. That's Hathaway's house. Yeah.
And Jordan is in charge now of getting the guy from
the dean
to come.
And then
the dean shows up with
bunny slippers.
He's like, the first thing Chris says to him is like, first of all, I have to commend you for your wardrobe choice. And they pan down, and it's because they're both wearing the same slippers. They're standing outside of Hawthorne's house, but they're kind of in the ditch across the street.
Yeah.
Hathaway. God damn it. Drink every time that I say it wrong.
I know.
It's because of my notes. I somehow got off.
But
Kent now shows up.
Yeah.
And he's got this outfit that Kent's got on, by the way. I noticed this the third time watching it. Is he's got a turtleneck on, but then it's got just that front little, like, so it's the same thing that Zach Galifianakis wore in Dinner for Schmucks, where it's a mock turtleneck, but it's the most mock turtleneck of all time, where only, because you're supposed to wear like a cardigan over this, so the rest of it will be covered, and it's just the square. And the laser fires.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're telling Kent,
Kent's standing outside there. He goes, I'm going in. Jesus, if that's you, I'm going in, because this is Hathaway's house, and we're very close. Very close.
So he goes in, and then
he goes in, and it's a giant Jiffy Pop popcorn container. They made Jiffy Pop popcorn.
And Kent's reaction.
Foyer, right? Just all, what is this?
And Kent's reaction to that is,
the laser shoots from space into Hathaway's house, right directly at Kent's crotch. So here we have the very 80s. You got to have that.
Yeah.
And his reaction, he's got this orgasmic kind of face, like, yes, God, take me away, right? That's it. Yes, I'm ready. And the popcorn starts popping because it's Jiffy Pop. It's not great, but it was all the rage, 1985.
Right.
And it's still fun. And here, the whole point was to destroy. This whole thing does many-fold, right?
Yes.
It destroys Hathaway's house, because fuck him. It exposes this whole clandestine thing that they were going to build a murdering laser weapon. The senator's aghast. And 3, they all get to eat. All the kids in the neighborhood come around and get to eat popcorn. Dogs are frolicking.
And Laszlo shows up, though.
Laszlo come right when you think it can't get any better. Like, they're like high-fiving and everything. Laszlo shows up in a brand new Winnebago, towing a cart full of swag. And he's won 31% of the prizes in the Frito-Lay contest.
I have to figure that out. Yeah.
And who comes popping out of the RV with them? Sherry comes popping out. She's like, I've been looking for – they're in love.
Yeah.
And she's been looking for him for 10 years.
I have a survivalist cabin in Montana we're going to live in.
Right. They're just going to escape together, and they're just going to go away. And Laszlo's like, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Things have gotten pretty weird. So and Nick turns to Chris and says, do you think things have gotten too weird? And what's Chris say?
Well, I know Jordan goes, I haven't noticed. And Mitch says, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And then...
And Chris says, Chris's reaction is, do you think things have gotten too weird? And Chris says, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then we cut to maybe the greatest credits roll song of all time, which is Tears for Fears. Everybody wants to rule the world. And there you go, man.
Great movie.
That's an amazing movie. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Tears for Fears.
Yes.
I had brought them over. Can you imagine if they were just,
I was waiting.
oh, hello, everyone. Hello. I don't know either of them personally. I feel like I know them on an intellectual level, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, having all said we went through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that this rates in terms of 80s comedies?
Oh, God, it's up there, man. It's way, way up there. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah.
I was telling everybody, I'm like, do you remember Real Genius? And there was like, oh, yeah, that was Val Kilmer. And isn't Everybody Wants to Rule the World at the end and the house is full of popcorn? I'm like, right. What else do you remember about it? I don't really remember. And I'm like, do yourself a favor. You could show it to the kid. It's it would probably be PG-13 now, but it's no nudity. We were waiting in the 80s for a girl's shirt to come off. I mean, there's a lot of references to, boy, if you eat that hamburger, your breasts are going to grow to enormous size. Oh my God, I'm too late. Things like that. There's a lot of double entendre, but no, if you're going to show an 80s movie to the younger generation and teenage kid, somebody Mitch's age. Well, I was 13 when this movie came out. Sure, you have a 13-year-old, show it to them. They'll enjoy it. And then they'll go back and watch it, when they're 50. Yeah. And they probably will enjoy it for the same reasons why I enjoyed it so much this time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I agree. It ranks up there with some of the top movies. I mean, you had 85, like we said in past podcasts. We've done a lot of movies that come out in 85. It was a banner year for the 80s.
It really was.
And this was kind of, like I said before, was overshadowed.
It was a banner year.
It was. And it was overshadowed by, Back to the Future, obviously, because that just took over the theaters and film kind of landscape for that year. But also, you had big hitters like Ghostbusters that came out the year before, but this holds its own. I feel like it's smart in terms of its audience, in terms of who it's playing for. Not because it's got nerd stuff in it, but just smart in the way it's telling the story. It's not really, it's not really dumbed down. I mean, a little bit, obviously, the laser stuff and the technology. But you could have, like you said, you could put it on and have a great time watching it. I mean, I do. It's something. It's a staple in my library. I watch it all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen this movie. I don't even know how many times I've seen this movie. I just know it like the back of my hand. I know I've watched it so much that I watch it now just for the little details, because I know the broad strokes of it. So yeah.
I noticed the Ouija board that was hanging on the back of their door in their room, in Chris and Mitch's door. Not a good idea, by the way. It's an interesting choice to have, like, the rest of the stuff on the walls. You had to have every wall in your room in the 80s had to be covered with shit.
Yeah, well...
and you could spray paint on your walls as a kid back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, I mean, a lot of the
really
art
happen in real life, but if you were a rocker kid, then you had to have every wall in your room covered with Iron Maiden posters and things like that. I had Lamborghinis and Bo Jackson and Kathy Ireland. That was my room. It wasn't like every wallpapering the room, but this is in the 80s. You definitely had to have that. I mean, you look at Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like every corner, his ceiling of his bedroom, and everything is covered. And that was definitely very 80s. So it's a little dated in that, where this is what it would have looked like.
Well, Val Kilmer's brother did a lot of that, put a lot of that stuff on the walls.
Nice. I didn't know that.
And I think I've heard it somewhere. It may have been in the Val documentary, but I don't remember where I heard that. But yeah, a lot of that stuff was art and stuff from his brother. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend this to people. I mean, I always
insist on it.
Yeah, I think it's a must. So
go back and if you're, if this sounds like, and if you've hung with us for the last 2 hours,
commend you.
You won't regret it. Spend $4 and rent it on YouTube, and then just put it on your smart TV, play it. You have 48 hours to watch it. It's fun. It's worth, it's almost 2 hours long. So You can get some views out of it, and you don't have to watch it all the way through. I mean, there's no Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I was trying to figure out where the breakdown took place. There's 4 montages, for crying out loud. So that kind of really throws off. You know what I mean? And at some point I was trying to figure out if maybe years had gone by in this program, because she's like, I've been waiting for you for 3 years, to Mitch, and I'm like, he's not 18 yet.
Right.
Ew, that means wait, she's been waiting for him since he was 12. But it turns out the person she's really been waiting for this whole time was Laszlo.
Yeah, Laszlo.
That's who she's been looking for this whole freaking time.
Yeah.
Not good, Sherry.
Right.
Lots of red flags.
Get it right, Sherry.
Ew. You got a Klay Thompson.
You know, I forgot that. I mean, I was just so into watching this movie.
Yeah.
I totally forgot.
I did too, but I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Jordan gets my
Yeah.
She is phenomenal. Yes, she's so good. She was in Valley Girl after this, which I think was also a Martha
80s.
Coolidge movie.
No, that was
it wasn't.
That was I think the girl from was that a Heckerling? Was that a Heckerling movie? Let me see. Let me bring that up here.
I could have done a full deep dive this morning, but I was like,
let's see. What is it? Valley Girl?
I feel like 2.5 hours, a pretty good deep dive. We did go almost shot for shot. I mean, I just absolutely loved it.
Oh, it is Martha Coolidge. You are right.
Yeah, it is, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought it was the only other name on her director list that I even recognized. I don't think I ever saw Valley Girl. I must have seen Valley Girl.
That was in '83. That was the same year as Fast Times, which we should revisit that too.
Fast Times?
Yeah.
We got to redo Fast Times. We did Fast Times episode 3, maybe.
Yeah.
Like really super early on.
Yeah.
We did. Well, no, she was in Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah. She was in The Outsiders. She was Cherry's best friend. Who
is Michelle Mayring.
Yeah.
Cute as a button. As a button. So yeah, I say do it. Pull the trigger. Spend $3.99 on YouTube and get the HD version. You're worth.
I guess what I'll do is I'll just pick Laszlo Holyfield. That's mine. Because again, like Jordan, any scene that he comes into, he automatically because he's used so little, when he is used, it's to the max. You know, he has influence and he relays information. So it's like, yeah, he's not in the whole movie. He's probably maybe in 15, 20 minutes of the movie, if that. But he leaves his legacy. He leaves his mark.
He really does.
Yeah. So Uncle Rico. Yeah.
Uncle Rico.
So cool, man. Well, yeah, we've taken up a lot of time on this one.
We did.
It was really cool to do. And I want to thank you guys.
I told you.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no,
I told you we were going to talk a long time about this one today.
Again, we're doing this in memory and honor of Val Kilmer, who we both appreciate and adore, and it's so sad that he's not with us anymore. Yeah. But we get to go through his movies and watch them and experience them, and so this one's for Val Kilmer. Yeah. And again, anybody that's been watching and listening, we thank you. And we appreciate your support. Let us know in the comments what you thought about Real Genius and Val Kilmer and what you think and how he's affected you. And with that, I want to say goodbye. And thanks, Toby.
Hit us up on the socials. There's so many different ways. I'm Parliament of Owls on Instagram. And obviously Steven's got, I think 9 different. He's the new etc. on his music site.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna see my friends
and Stigar, my personal
Stigar.
One. Yeah,
Stigar. So he's got a few different ways to hit him up, and give me a follow. Let's be buddies out there.
Yeah. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.